Hey folks, welcome to MSP Mountain. And today we have Nick Ward, who works with me in Support Adventure. How's it going, Nick?
I'm great. Can't complain. Lovely sunny day here in Brazil.
Yeah, sunny day actually here in Serbia for the end of February here. Spring has arrived, and I'm very excited. You know, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be out riding my bike right now, as I was
Yeah.
previously in the last hour. So, yeah, pretty good. So, in this podcast, we're going to tell a lot of stories about MSPs that we've worked with, both with Support Adventure and before we worked at Support Adventure, and sort of
Mhm.
like give people an insight onto how to build a stable MSP, you know?
Yeah.
Because we see so many things done wrong, don't we?
We do. And I mean, no MSP is perfect, right? But we see a lot of things, a lot of things going wrong, but we're here to help basically.
We get to help, and we get to help with, an insight into how lots of different MSPs do it, an insight on what works, and an insight from, for example, your experience working in a medium-sized MSP as a manager as well, right? So lots of
Exactly.
tips and tricks, and you've also done a lot of work with ITIL and that framework and everything like that. And I basically am the guy who started from the ground up, which I think is the way a lot of MSP owners do it. But the
Hmm.
difference with me is I started from the ground up as my running my own IT business. But then because of moving away from Canada where I built that, I had to work for other people's businesses where I got to
Yeah.
see what it's like to be a tech and all the problems that documentation brings and bad documentation brings and all the problems the lack of defined policy brings and all that stuff. So here we are, the year is 2021. We have over 30 MSP clients on our client list right now, and
Hmm.
I think we should record this with the guys in mind who are scaling their MSP from 5 to 10 techs,
Yeah.
because they're the ones who tend to be the most flabbergasted by the amount of chaos that they've built in their operation, if you can even call it operational
Yeah.
sometimes. So a little bit of a story to tell. First, I started just like one of those guys, and I think I would be one of those guys now, were it to be that I stayed in Canada. I
Hmm.
started at the age of 16, putting up signs around my neighborhood. Computer Genius for Hire was the name of my business then. And, then I built the business from there. I was that smart, I can fix anything sort of guy. At the age of 16 or 17, I built a whole 400 machine NT4 domain with no oversight from the administration at my high school. And
Yeah.
I just proceeded like that because it was like late 90s, early 2000s, and nobody knew what they were doing. And so I built a very steady business. And I see a lot of commonality between me and the people that we work
Yeah.
with who are running these small MSPs.
Hmm.
And, I always thought that just hiring another guy like me would be what was needed to grow the business. And I tried it and it never worked. The guys were
Yeah.
unreliable. They didn't communicate as well as me. And I sort of, because I would split to go to Europe and leave them in charge of my business for a month. Big mistake. So that's where I really learned that you cannot rely on people's common sense to run your business
Yeah.
as you will run your business. And so, what you need to do instead is put in a little bit of structure, a little bit of order, and a little bit of accountability. So,
Hmm.
what about your perspective? How did you enter the business and become a manager? And how did you go from tech to manager? And what was that like?
So I started off as a tech. That was my first job, working for and a help desk, answering phones and fixing old ladies' problems, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottom of the barrel, and so to speak. And that was it. And from that point, I moved on, moved out upwards, moved to different organizations, and went out at one organization in London. I was a senior level engineer. The service desk manager left, and the technical director asked me if I wanted to come into management. Honestly, the only reason I did it was more money. That's why I did it. Um, I was young. I was like 24 years old, and they
Uh
said,
huh.
there's more money." So I said, "Okay, let's do it." And I haven't looked back since. And since that day, I've become a lot more process. when I was a tech, I always thought processes were annoying. Um,
Yep.
why do I have to do this? Why do I have to listen to this? Why do I have to make all these notes? Asking questions against the process. But now on the other side, having seen what I've seen, having done this for many, many years, um, and put in these processes to make things better, it's completely changed, right?
Yeah,
So
because you
now
see, you look at it as a system, right?
yeah,
Once you're in
exactly. And this
management.
is Yeah, and the system needs to work, and everybody needs to be in the same system, achieving the same goals, right? Working in the same direction. Um, and that's how I got into management, and yeah, haven't looked back since. Heavily process driven. Yeah,
Yeah, well, actually, this one of the one of the things that we released on our series of videos called MSP Worst Practices is senior technicians as managers,
yeah,
because typically it tends to be like yeah, they are that person who's, whatever the rule is, they're making an excuse on why they're not following it, because these are the people who can think of so many different ways to do everything, and it's like herding cats to get these people to actually write notes. Unless you put their bonus on the line and make it a KPI for their bonus, I don't think it's ever going to work. That might not be true with everybody, but anyway, senior technicians as managers. Just because somebody is a senior technician doesn't mean that they actually have social and people skills that are going to actually translate well to management. What we've seen a lot
yeah,
of times is techs who are made managers, who sometimes are just completely like out of touch with any sort of process, and they're basically just fighting fires all day as if
yeah,
they're a tech, as if, and they tend to actually have this very judgmental attitude towards the people that they're managing, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
And they don't really look at the big picture, that different people need to be motivated in different ways, and there's different seats on the bus, and you have to get the right person in the right seat on the bus, and they're just essentially, I can do this, why can't this person do this, assign it to them. Oh, they can't do it, okay, I need to go and do it for them and show them how to do it, rather than you make a system that basically helps people helps people get work that they can do, rather
yeah.
than
Give them the
berating them when they
tools. Either
can't.
give them the tools to do it, right? The right tools to the right people, or as you said, those people who are more specialized in different things, give them the jobs that they can do, especially when they still level one, level two, and they're growing,
Yeah,
right? You can't give someone uh, tell someone, okay, yeah, you need to install this managed switch, or do, I mean, any example
there needs to be
when
a
they
structure
still
for mentoring, which is not just you stupid, you didn't do
yeah.
this, you know.
You're stupid.
It's like, it's just this sort of thing. You need management skills. I don't know what you were like in the beginning as a manager, but I know
Yeah.
now that we have these understandings, this experience, my management experience of people, most of the initial lessons that I learned in this area actually came when I was running a band. And
Hmm.
there, if you make bad management sort of decisions, you're sitting next to the people who are impacted by those decisions and who have a diminished opinion of you 24 hours a day in the van,
Yeah.
in the accommodation, on the stage, and everything. And so I really learned to suffer the consequences of my bad management. Whereas I feel,
Uh,
especially in this world of remote working and all this stuff, the exposure that you have to the people you're working with is so limited that
mm-hmm.
you might not even know how bad a manager you are, because people are just avoiding you as much as possible and dancing around you while
Yep.
you continue to be completely out of touch with what the actual concerns are with your management, and what the actual feelings and insights the tech has to offer are, because you
Exactly.
actually stonewalled them a couple times when they tried to raise them, and they just stopped even trying to bring
They
it.
just
So
stop trying.
this is one of the advantages of our model, is because essentially what happens, you get us in the middle, like a sort of a
Yep.
marriage counselor or something that
Marriage relationship
yeah,
counseling. Yeah.
so you've got a tech that's assigned from us to you, and you're basically managing them directly, and you essentially get to deal with them directly, but we listen to both sides, listen to you, listen to them, and with our
Yep.
experience dealing with many such assignments and many such techs and companies, we are able to offer insights on both sides. So that's one of the advantages of us. But this podcast is not so that we can sell. I mean, we've got too many sales right now. So basically, let's continue with the insights. So Texas managers, what do you think companies should hire as a manager to have a well-structured MSP, what are the big picture things that the manager needs to pay attention to apart from the tech?
Okay, so for me, the manager needs to, as you said before, right? The overall big picture, where we're going, right? Where do we want to be? As an organization, as a service desk. You can have a service desk manager, organizational manager, operations. But where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? How do we push everybody in the same direction to that? And then looking at the processes as well. So the processes that you currently have, and continually improving those processes, reviewing them. These are some things.
Yeah. And I also feel like it's also a system that you're running beneath you, that you're not working in the system, you're working on the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we're a big advocate of the dispatch role as somebody who works as sort of the right hand person of the management person, right?
Yeah,
To
exactly.
sort of like run the system of checking all the tickets every day, that the techs are leaving good notes on them, scheduling next steps and all that stuff, and keeping that machine running in a very process oriented way. Because as we covered earlier in this call, basically techs are not very good at consistently doing processes, and you need to have somebody, and you as a manager might also not be good at consistently doing the processes. So if one of the processes is to check if the people are following processes, it's interesting because Americans say process, and in England you say
Processes.
process, and in Canada
Yeah.
we say both. So I'm always confused by this when I'm talking to multiple continents. But anyways, so yeah, if one of your processes or processes is to ensure that the techs are following processes, then basically if you're not doing that process consistently, you need somebody who will,
Yeah,
because otherwise you're part of the problem essentially.
exactly.
So the whole
And
machine of dispatch is like dispatch. It's your job to look at every ticket on the board and remind people that they've let a ticket fall by the wayside.
mhm.
So let's talk more about dispatch and how the dispatcher, a well proceduralized dispatch role, is the manager's best friend.
Well, they are essentially because they are running, making sure that they're running the processes that you've created for the service desk, right? Um, so some of the processes we get the dispatcher to do, as you said, monitor tickets, make sure that the techs are updating tickets every day. It should be a minimum,
Yeah.
right? I think we everybody can agree that unless something's on hold or scheduled for the future, updating the ticket every day should be the minimum. And as a tech, I didn't do that sometimes.
Yep.
Honest answer, right?
Neither.
Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe because I was too busy, or I thought I was too busy, obviously. But it could
Or
be,
it's not your priority.
yeah. I
Nobody's
think,
insisting on it. It's not central to
exactly.
the job that you're doing. The job you're doing is essentially to help people,
Yeah,
and it's a
and
secondary feature to have you actually documenting helping people, and that's how most people think, and they get the thrill. The thrill of the job is when you help somebody get something working, figure something out, and somebody's like, oh, thank you. and
everyone's happy. Yeah,
and
exactly.
documentation tends to be something that you have to exercise like a muscle in order to get some joy out of it.
Hmm.
Otherwise it's going to be a sore task to do.
Yeah.
um yeah, and it's kind of like it's one of those habits that you have to instill in yourself, and in absence of the ability to instill that, your text having the ability to instill that in themselves, somebody else has to have the habit of policing them on that.
Pushing them, yeah, pushing them to do that, right? And that has the only way to realize if you have documentation that should be created is probably by reviewing tickets. um
Yeah.
because I mean,
Before we
a
get to
tech
documentation, we'll get
sorry,
there, but
go
let's
back to the
talk a little bit
dispatcher.
more. Yeah, dispatch.
So
I
as I
mean,
said,
why should companies have a dispatch? So you've got five techs in a MSP. Why should your sixth hire be a dispatcher rather than another tech? You know?
so okay, it takes a load off the techs answering the phones, right? I mean, I don't it depends. You might have a service coordinator answering the phone, which is not ideal, but get the dispatcher in, they can answer the phones, triage the ticket,
Well,
and then
dispatch and service
assign it.
coordinator are kind of the same thing in my head, in
I
our
mean,
heads.
like, yeah, it is. But some people use like a service coordinator for other things, right? Not
Yeah.
just
Okay.
dispatching. So, but
Yeah, to
taking
shield the
taking
techs from sort of curate the tickets that the techs are getting, right? Rather
yeah.
than having random techs answering r-
Random phone
random
calls.
tickets, answering random tickets from random clients about random tickets at random times. It's just that's random and
Hmm.
that's chaos. And then they have to track down the person who the can actually help the person, or like a dispatcher handling all of the inbound communications and then looking at the system as a whole and who's
Yeah,
available, who can help this, rather than a ring group that gets 50 calls a day spread across five
exactly.
technicians, picking up random stuff. It's like it's a game up. It's just like if you go to a fine restaurant, there's a hostess who seats you, and then there's a waitress bringing you some drinks, and then you've got the chefs in the kitchen. Whereas most MSPs are still sort of running their shop like
Just
you've got a restaurant with a row of five chefs, and you just
yeah,
walk up to a random chef and say, "Cook me a beefsteak now."
yeah.
That would never work in the restaurant industry, and
No.
nor would it work in the aviation industry if like there were planes on an airport tarmac and you just walked up to a pilot and say, "Hey, I want to go to Cincinnati." Like, nope. And I think the other thing is, if most MSPs were an airline, most MSP owners would not want to fly on their own airline, because
Yeah.
they'd know how little organization there is to make sure that you have a smooth flight. So
Hmm.
yeah, so
Exactly.
dispatch is a game changer, because I mean, there's so many other analogies we can use, like a hospital, where you walk into the hospital and go into a room where a doctor is examining a patient and say, "Hey, doctor, I've got this rash," and
Yeah.
distracting them from the other patient and all that
And
stuff.
it works when there's a small village, right? And one
Yeah.
person comes in a day,
Hmm.
right? But when
Yeah.
you go to a big city, there's 100,000, well, 10 million people
Yeah.
with
So
20,000 coming.
yeah, getting your
Well,
business past that stage is like, it's a great task to
yeah,
have done as a business owner, to have gotten to the point where you've hired other people,
yeah,
and they're also doing a reasonably good job. Your clients are happy, you get more clients, but then over five technicians, that's just not tenable as a system or organization. You're going to start getting complaints, you're going to start getting balls dropped, unless you have somebody who's in the seat of dispatcher, who's consistently looking at every single case from a process oriented
yeah,
standpoint.
exactly.
Yeah, so
So
it's like,
yeah, so yeah. Some other things the dispatcher will do is make sure that engineers, if they can't fix a problem, right? What do I do with this ticket? Do I have to pass it to this person? No, give it to the dispatcher. The dispatcher will dispatch it again
yeah,
to a person who can do it,
escalation
right?
management. Like,
Exactly.
someone can't
Another
solve it.
process.
Like, yeah, we always think that the best way to escalate, like the best one that I've seen, is the level one tech, 30 minutes, they can't solve it. And then they reach out on the open channel that everybody can see, and they ask, "Hey, anybody know the password for this router? I can't find it. I needed to unblock this port." And if
Hmm.
they don't get an answer in another 15 minutes, then they unassign themselves, assign it to someone else, and it moves on, because you don't want people to have stuff on their plate that they can't eat, you know?
Yeah,
You want to distribute, because yeah, you're keeping them from getting that low hanging fruit that they can, those tickets they can
they
close.
can eat. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, those
you
tickets
know.
that they can close are essentially, um, they're being distracted from that by the ones that are like these weird little problems that, maybe some senior tech didn't do the documentation, as is often the case, and they can't
Hmm.
solve it. So they should get that off their plate, and it should be the responsibility of, rather than them to track down that tech who didn't solve it, the dispatcher to do that. And
Exactly.
then you have a centralized system, and then all the techs know the dispatcher. When the dispatcher writes to you, you listen to them,
Hmm.
and then you, as the service desk manager, say, "If you guys don't listen to dispatch when they contact you, then you're going to have a meeting with me, and I'm going to tell you why dispatch is so important." But
Yeah.
if you just have text going to random other texts for different stuff, you're going to get one tech will say, "No, I don't know, go to Jimmy, he knows." And then Jimmy says, "Yeah, I'm busy right now," and you don't get the answers. But and though this is how we get senior techs looking down on lower techs. It's like, "Oh, look at that stupid question." Yes, it's like, well, you know what? You were once less
Everyone
experienced
was
than
there.
you are,
Yeah.
and you actually haven't done a great job at documenting this matter so that the junior techs can solve it. So that's why you're getting an escalation.
Hmm.
And also, we like to see in the dispatch process a reverse escalation, so that when a senior tech does solve a ticket in the post ticket closure analysis, is this something, assuming the senior tech leaves some decent notes?
Yeah.
Is this something that the initial ticket holder, the person who took the first steps but couldn't solve it, is this something that we can feed back down to them so that next time maybe they're more in the loop? Should the documentation be updated to include this as a knowledge base article, or was there a piece of technical
Exactly.
data missing? And a dispatcher would be also the one to manage that. So it's a game changer for MSPs that actually want to run a well-oiled machine rather
Yeah.
than a
It
bunch of
is.
people sitting in a room together, which is what a lot of MSPs were before 2020. A lot of,
Yeah.
and in the case that you were sitting in the room together, then it's like, hey, John's on the line. Do you know the password to the printer in the accounts department? And then you would get that answer. But
Yeah.
now it's a completely different thing. But we've been prepared for this reality for years at Support Adventure because we've been working remotely. So,
Hmm.
and we've seen the faults in all of these communication styles that are, using chat for escalations, um, using basically emails as escalation, and having
We've seen everything, right?
an escalation path, which is, yeah, and we've seen it from the perspective of the way things are going to be for a long time, which is techs sitting at their computers at home, which is what I always preferred, to be honest. No, I didn't like on-site. No, I didn't like sitting in the office with other people. It's just I'll get on a call when I need to, call client, get on a video call with anybody, no
Uh
problem.
huh.
But otherwise, I like to be left alone to do my work without interruption. And that's another
Yeah.
reason why you should have a dispatcher, because if you're listening to the phone ring, you pick it up and you're already working on tickets. So having technicians answer the phone works really great if you've got a bunch of technicians sitting around doing nothing,
Yeah.
right? But I'm guessing most MSP, have you ever seen an MSP where they like to have a bunch of techs sitting around doing nothing? I haven't.
Waiting for the call. No.
The only one was my first remote gig in 2013, where it was an MSP that was going down, and I was like, okay, give me 800 euros a month, and I will work 15 hours a week on your help desk. And then I was
Mhm.
really sitting around slow cooking stews, and I got like 2 or 3 calls a day. Then I gave great service, like immediate best attention to the people, and they loved it. But
Yep.
unfortunately, the way most businesses are structured, most most MSP owners do not want to overstaff to the point where they have someone sitting doing nothing or
No.
something unimportant when all of the calls come in. Therefore, having a dispatcher to shield and figure out who's doing what and who's able to divert for something important and what's not important and can be called back later, that's key. So
Hmm.
I think that's enough about dispatch. I've got another video I made about this. Let's get
Uh
on
huh.
to yeah, a little bit more about documentation, because this is the other big pain point.
Yeah.
Because if you are a tech who's given tickets and you don't have the information to do your job, in my first job, this is really what I encountered immediately, because there was a MSP that had a senior tech, another level one who soon left
Uh
afterwards,
huh.
who was on his way out, and then the owner. And so there was almost nothing. They
Yeah.
knew all the clients like the back of their hands, and there was almost nothing. And I've seen clients that we've onboarded who still have almost nothing, even though they've got like 3 people, 4 people, and
Yeah.
they still got some random SharePoint
The
folder with
information's
some,
in the head, right?
or
That's
the
how.
information, little key bits of information are randomly recorded in a randomly placed sort of document somewhere, and in their head they know how to find that information.
Yeah, that's true.
So we are a strong advocate of IT glue.
Yep.
Why? Okay,
Definitely.
you joined us 2 years ago. You hadn't heard of IT glue. What difference did it make in the way you look at
It's
stuff?
yeah, it's just so structured, right? And you have all the related items. Everything's so easy to find, even if you're not used to IT glue. The first time you look at it, on the left it says email, and
Oh
if you
yeah,
know you're looking for email, you click on email.
yeah,
It's and if every organization is listed. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right?
yeah. 25 or
Or it
whatever it
should
is, even
be.
$39 per user per month. I mean, like, how many hours are you going to save your staff, and how much are you actually telling them the documentation is important by paying for this thing? Now, I will say that even if you have IT glue, that doesn't mean that the glue is
No.
put in the right places, meaning that
Yeah,
things might not hold together unless you have the right culture of documentation in your organization, right?
correct.
So
Yeah.
we've seen companies that even have like Google Docs that are really well templated, really well maintained in a
And it
methodical.
works.
Yeah, there's account managers who go through them, as they're not that busy because the company has done the right stuff, and they have time once a month to go through all the clients that they're managing and making sure that the information is still up to date. And
Hmm.
without that sort of process, then IT glue is actually, you might as well not order it unless you're
Yep.
ready to actually do a really good migration, where your first, like what we recommend for migration is you first set up all your flexible assets and your syncs to your RMM and ticketing system, and then you set up one client as is going to be the template for how all the other clients are going to be done. And
Hmm.
then you, once everybody is sort of acquainted and briefed on that, you take all the stakeholders ideas of how this could be better, and then you go and you migrate client by client. You make it somebody's
No
like
rest.
job to go client by client, migrating all of the documentation, auditing first what's there and that it's current and all that stuff, flagging what's not current, and then you move it over to IT Glue once you know
Yep.
that all the stuff you're moving is correct. And then as soon as you finish that client, you archive the old documentation source, SharePoint or Google Docs or whatever it
Wherever.
was, chicken scratch on a paper somewhere in a filing cabinet, like whatever it was, you archive it, make it inaccessible without special request or without some hassle, and then say, okay, then you send a daily update to the people. Okay, SAS mining has now been moved over to IT Glue. Take a look, guys. And
Yeah.
then the techs are going to feel like, oh, wow, the clients that
Yeah.
are on this new system are so much, this is so slick. And but the
Yeah.
worst IT glue migrations that we've seen is where everybody's sort of en masse moving stuff over randomly. Again, the randomness without a structure
Yeah.
of how things are done, you just got random people doing little random bits of stuff as they feel like it. And you know god bless those dudes, but
And then information's in both places. Techs don't know where to look. Yep.
so it's about somebody taking ownership of the process of doing that, and everybody slowly getting on board with using the new system,
Yeah. Exactly.
client by
Um.
client. Yeah.
Yeah. So with documentation, like, how do you instill that? I know I'm asking you now.
Okay.
How do you instill that personality sort of for the engineers to be create documentation and update documentation? Because that's,
You've
I'll
got to
be honest
find a
with you,
way of
it's not easy, right?
gamify. Okay, so it starts with ticket notes. Definitely starts with ticket notes.
Yes.
That's something
Good.
that they know is part of their job and they will not dispute as part of their job. Like you just help somebody. We need to know what you did, how you did it, and a couple other details about
Where you
stuff,
got that information or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. We need to have a record of these records. And so yeah, it starts with ticket notes, right?
Yep. It's cool.
And our ticket note writing guide includes, I'll just give the most key piece of information. There's a section on ticket notes from a business perspective. Like I called the client, I called them, left a message, they were not there. I sent an email to see if they're blah 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 blah. That's from the ticketing system. But okay, and then they said I can't do this right now. Call back. All the business information of
Business information.
how you were denied access to solve the ticket. If somebody complains, that's going to be really useful. And then
Yeah.
the technical information. Basically, the technical information is important because people need to be able to understand what you did so they can reproduce that. So even if you don't feel like at the end of the ticket you've got a queue of 7 tickets that are ready to go and people want your help and you want to get on with them, if you write those good ticket notes, you and whoever's looking at it later could update the documentation, could make a knowledge base article. So it starts with the ticket notes. It
Yeah.
starts with you writing the business considerations and procedures that you follow and the technical information and procedures that you follow to do this, links to any knowledge base articles that you used, any sort of stuff that you changed in the process, any documentation you found that was incorrect, actually,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you can update it
Yep.
right there and then. But if it needs like an overhaul, like yeah, say the RMM is syncing the wrong device with the wrong, I don't know, it could be anything, but you
Could be
flag
anything.
that in your ticket notes. Anyways, the way I get people started with ticket notes and taking it seriously is you want to get your dispatcher. Hopefully you have
Yeah.
one. If not, you need a service desk manager. And as a business owner, you have to ride the service desk manager and give them, I need you to do this every week. And
Yeah.
then once it's a good system and it's working, then we'll hire someone to do this for you. But until then, you need to do it. And then, okay, so you get the dispatcher to just make sure that each of the tickets ends with one of four things: ticket resolved,
Mm.
hopefully, and any post resolution notes, like the documentation needs to be changed or something, for people looking at it after. Ticket resolved is one. Next steps is number two, right? It
Yeah.
means that the technician is taking responsibility for doing the next steps,
Yep.
meaning I am going to call them up on Thursday at 10 a.m. and I'm going to finish installing the software.
Hmm.
That means it's staying on them. The ticket's on them, and any dispatcher or service desk manager looking at that ticket and looking at it later to see how it was solved, they will see that the person took responsibility for the next steps. The
Yeah.
next one is waiting for. It means that they cannot solve it, but it's staying on them because if somebody externally takes the action, they can solve it.
Yep.
So if a vendor or client does something, so the client needs to go buy the new version of QuickBooks, or
Or a new
we are,
license or whatever.
yeah, whatever it is, we are waiting for the printer to get delivered, waiting for the client, waiting for the vendor, waiting for the delivery, whatever it is that's waiting for, that means it stays assigned
Hmm.
to that person. Then there's escalation required.
Yeah.
That person cannot solve the ticket for whatever reason. Could be missing documentation that a senior engineer on site did not document, and well, everything's changed. It's not updating the documentation. I need to escalate this. Somebody else needs to deal with this because I can't. I don't have the info. Or it could be a skill gap where somebody doesn't have the skill to solve it. And
Yep.
so, escalation required. There's an onus on the technician that writes escalation required to write a comprehensive
Yeah. What they've
yeah,
done,
what they've done, what the
things they've
possible next steps
tried.
might be, why they can't
Possible next
solve
steps.
it, and all that sort of jazz. So we've
Yep.
got all this in a guide that we pretty much give to any new client. Ticket note writing guide. Like it's elementary to us, but some companies,
Yeah. They don't have it.
like the ticket note section, when you are doing your time entry on ConnectWise or AutoTask, the ticket note section is not the place to put some sort of free form poetry. It's
Yeah.
information that's actually regarding the way that you've done stuff there. And there's a very structured way that you should be putting details in there. And there's a very comprehensive list of details that should be in there
That
should
should
they
be
be
there.
present in the case.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gets better. Yeah. I mean, so that's pretty much it. And then once you get people doing good ticket notes and they feel how good that feels to actually be able to look at somebody else's ticket notes from when a user calls up and has the same problem that they had the week before, well, then it gets a lot better. And then the clients will get better service, and then they'll have a better perception of your service. And then the CEO is gonna recommend your services. Friends, your business will grow past
Yeah.
5 technicians. And if you get all these structures in place, you can go past 10, 15, 20, 30 technicians. But we've rarely seen an MSP that has more than 10
More than
technicians
10.
without this being in order, where it's a good place to work and where
Yeah.
clients
Huh?
are getting good service. We've rarely seen it. It's very
Yeah.
rare. And so if you're that small MSP that's growing, now's the time to put in these procedures. And we can help. So we can talk about that if you guys want. You can write us. We're available, whatever, for consulting and stuff like that. So, right. And so with the documentation in order, with the dispatcher in order, you're basically on your way. Now, let's talk about, from the technician's perspective,
Hmm.
the interaction between sales and management, and the CEO who wants to drive the profits up
Yeah.
when the sales team has a monster quarter, right?
Okay. Is this
And
okay?
yeah, so the sales team sold a bunch of contracts
Are they
to a bunch of
Are they selling everything? Like
there's not
promising?
only are they selling everything, but they walk in and they sign a contract. Oh, yeah, you've got that property management system in your real estate firm from 1997. Yeah, we can support that. And it's like, oh, yeah, oh, right. So you're using a Linksys home router for your entire office. That's great. We can support that. And
Yeah.
they sell and they just want that dotted line, that cha-ching, cha-ching.
That
Um,
monthly income. Yeah.
monthly recurring, and maybe you even have commission based salespeople who are just signing everybody up. What challenges does that create operationally?
Oh, that is this is one of my pet peeves. And I've seen it. Obviously, the salesmen want to sell, and they've the owner or the founder or the sales director will obviously push to sell more and more and more.
Oh yeah.
Um, but it creates massive problems for techs. Absolutely massive, because things are okay. Even if you document things for with your sales program from 1995, even if it's adequately or could be adequately
I once saw
documented.
one that said when the client started to open it, it said cannot find Excel 97.
Oh wow.
This was 3 years ago in 2018. So
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, thing we it needs to be applications need to have. I like it. We have. I don't. I've seen clients where they have application. They only sign their clients if they have applications which have support,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're not going to support anything which doesn't have third-party support,
Mhm.
and they only use certain types of firewalls, certain types of switches, and that's the business model you should be
Yeah,
doing.
I think it's clear.
Honestly,
Yeah, it's like we're not developers, guys. We can't go and recompile code, and we're not going to make a virtualized
yeah.
Windows 98 machine so you can
And if the
configure.
if the client if the client says, okay, look, here, we're not changing, right? We're going to use this program, okay, but in the contract, it has to state that's best efforts. We can't be held accountable if we can't fix this
Yeah,
program
a
from
lot of MSP owners
1995.
like they leave something very key out of the contract, which is scope.
Yeah,
You know,
what's
the
in scope
contracts
or
don't
not?
have scope. It's like we're doing your IT support, and
We do
like
everything.
there's no limitation of scope. They haven't scoped out what the client has, and they're just pretty much at a loss for the details of what's gonna hit the fan when
Hmm.
support goes live, especially if they don't have a really good onboarding procedure for documenting that stuff.
So that's part of it, right? The onboarding procedure needs to go through every single thing that the client has, and then if you do that properly, then you're starting off on the best foot possible. Your documentation should be fantastic. Everything in IT glue,
And you need to
everything that
start
you
with those
support.
proposals before you sign the contract. I mean, start with those proposals of like, look, this is where you guys are. We're happy to help you through this, but this is where you guys need to be.
Yeah.
Trust our experience, and you can't run with this Linksys router in your office anymore. You need something like you're going to need to have your remote workers with a decent VPN. You're going to
Exactly.
need to have, a decent level of security. This old Exchange on site, nah, we're going to migrate you to Office 365, and so on and so forth. You need to put that up front. Hey, this
Yeah.
is where, and if this is not in your budget, then you should go with a low cost IT company, because the ones I prefer to work with, because okay, we're uh, for staffing, outsourced staffing abroad, we are the
Hmm.
premium solution, right?
Yeah.
With lots of people who are actually from the countries that they're supporting, for example, who happen to be living abroad, and the highest quality sort of whatever international. We've got 1 out of every 1,000 people applying actually succeeding in getting a position. We're the premium. And if people don't want that, they can go to the lower cost outsourcing destinations that are more cookie cutter, or like the shared help desk solutions where
Yeah.
they're only doing level one, and they're escalating 60% of tickets because your documentation that you've given them is bad, and all that stuff. What we do is different. We're premium. So we
Yeah.
like to work with companies that are also premium, that are they've got their clients who just simply want the best service, and they
Hmm.
want to take the advice of the experts in order to achieve the best result with their technology, not these people who are looking to nickel and dime. So a big mistake that MSPs make with sales is going allowing themselves to be lowballed, allowing themselves to make sacrifices on the integrity of the entire plan that they have for the project work and all that stuff. I
Uh
mean,
huh.
like it. It's really hard to see from a technician standpoint when sales has signed a contract with a company that basically just they're not willing to pay to get where they say they want to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
so yeah, why yeah. What's the biggest horror story that you've got in that area?
It's let me think. I don't know.
Okay, if you don't have something, we can move on to the next point. But yeah, it's like it's again and again. You want to be the premium side of the market, or at least a good, healthy mid-range that's kind of like got their thing,
Uh-huh.
which is cost efficient. It's like we got a I don't know. Is Sonic Wall cheaper than Cisco? Probably is, right? I don't actually look
Yeah,
at the
it
prices
is.
from my seat. Yeah, so Sonic Wall's cheaper than Cisco's, but if you're only deploying Sonic Wall and all your new clients are going to get a Sonic Wall, and all of your engineers are going to know how to service Sonic Wall, so you're not going to get many escalations when it's
That's
just
the idea,
VPN
right? To
ticket from
have,
Sonic Wall, right? Because
yeah,
all of them
some
are doing it
level
every
of,
day. And so you
exactly.
can be a mid-level. So I always ask MSP owners, are you low cost, middle range, or premium in service? And the answer to that question is really interesting. And they always are kind of stop for a second. Oh yeah, unless they know they're premium. But yeah,
Hmm.
so yeah, you can deploy Sonic Wall. If you want to cheap out on some stuff on the laptops that you're giving them, you can whatever. But
Mm.
it's all about like defining who you are and what you're offering, and the low ball end of the market in MSP um, essentially means less money, more problems.
Yeah.
And you might still make enough money to live as a business owner, but if you try to scale that operation without a standard ethos of standardization, and
Mm-hmm.
without some sort of level of consistency in what you're supporting and how you're documenting it, it's going to be hard. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
what else did we want to training new staff? I think this is
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that we encounter as like, yeah, you're hiring people who are basically okay. Well, actually, let's backpedal a little bit. Interviewing technicians
Uh-huh.
before
Okay.
you hire them. A
Yeah.
lot of companies. I mean, first of all, I would imagine that you'd agree with me that looking at someone's CV or resume in this business is pretty much
Oh, I don't
not
want to say a
very.
waste of time,
It's not
but
a waste of time, but it's not very effective in actually
no.
making a decision on whether they'd be good or not.
No. So I would say, yeah, looking at a CV, I mean, anybody can type anything on a CV. It's not illegal to,
S-
um,
And
I don't
yeah,
want to say make up things because that is, I think it's frowned upon, but it's, people can exaggerate on a
yep.
CV. Very
and
easy to
and
exaggerate what
if you
you've done.
hire someone like that, it's going to become very clear very fast that
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing and they're in over their head.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
interviewing people, and I always tell the MSPs that we're working with that rather than hiring based on experience, looking at someone's experience, they should look at somebody's intelligence,
hmm.
because the person's intelligence will reveal how they're going to adapt to the environment that requires them constantly to learn new things.
Exactly.
And
Uh,
basically it just comes down to the fact that a lot of MSPs don't know what they're looking for in terms of a good technician, what actually makes a good technician, because they've just muddled it along, taking the people who are available and hoping for the best. So once
exactly.
you've got the right environment with the right technology, the right procedures, the right structure of personnel and everything like that, then you can move on to actually, well, finding the right people to fit in
Get
that.
in the
And
market.
finding the right people should be somehow, you should trial them. Trial and test them. Tests and trialing are
Yeah.
the best indicators. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so a trials are great, right? I mean, someone comes in, you can mentor them, and you can shadow with them, and within 2 weeks to a month, you will know if this person, number one, said what they well can do what they said they could do
Yeah.
during the interviewing process, and number two, can fit into your organization culturally, as you said, like has the right intelligence to be a good part of your team,
Follows procedures.
follows procedures. So trials, yeah, we are strong advocates of trials.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and a lot
I
of
mean,
people just think like it's risky to trial a technician because of, well, this and that and the other thing, and it's a waste of time. I mean, okay, so yeah, so trialing people is good, and interviewing people based on their approach to solving problems rather than
mhm,
do they know how to with write on paper how to deploy a printer and group policy, and do they
Yeah.
know like the back of their hand everything that they need to click to do that, and can they answer all these specific questions about specific technologies and specific answers to things. Go general and test them, at least in the level 1, level 2. Test them. Hey, the best test is, you've never touched this panel in your life. This is a problem that you need to solve with it, and give it to
Mm-hmm.
them. And I had this once when I was applying for a job in London, and it was a Wi-Fi deployment thing, and the thing was like set up a bridge of two routers, and took me about half an hour. I'd never seen that type of router. He deliberately picked an obscure one, and I did it. He's like, "Wow, I didn't expect anybody to do this." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I've been doing for the last 10 years. As I was
Exactly.
26, it was since I was 16, I was doing that stuff." And yeah, that was good. I didn't end up working for that guy because his documentation was really bad. And I was showing up to cafes to set up like Wi-Fi routers. And there was no information on where, or to troubleshoot Wi-Fi routers that were crashed. I was showing up to cafes and there was no documentation of even where the router was.
Oh wow.
And it's a cafe, so I'm like, hey, could I look under the cash register and see if it's there? Oh, do you have some sort of office or something here where it might be? And everyone's like trying to serve. It's central London, financial district, and they're trying to serve a bunch of people their coffee during lunch hour, and I'm there like, "Yeah, I'm trying to find this wireless thing, like so." I told the guy I can't do this, and good luck. And I got another job offer in the first 2 days of doing that, which is, I probably would have stuck with it if I hadn't. But yeah,
Hmm.
that highlights the point that talented engineers have many offers, many opportunities, and so you
Yeah.
need to adapt your interviewing style to
To them.
basically, yeah, basically screen these people and win them over at the same time.
Yeah.
So
No.
what?
So
Yeah,
yeah. So one of the things is, yeah, you need to give. I mean, it's not just about money for techs, right? They want to learn. They want to grow as people.
they want to feel
Or
part of a team.
hopefully you. That's the sort of people you need to attract, right? And that's who you want to attract. People who want to grow. People who want to be part of the team, part of the family. Um, grow as people and grow professionally. So
Yeah,
that's what you need to offer as well, when hiring people, I
yeah,
feel anyway.
yeah. And even the best clients that we have, like they're just so nice. They've got a structure,
Mm.
and they're just really nice people who care about people. And it's
Yeah.
not just some boss above everything, trying to drive up the profits, and all that stuff. Those companies are always
Yeah.
horrible. It's like somebody who's like, listen, I want to give my clients a good feeling, therefore I need to give my staff a good feeling. And for there to be good feelings, they have to not be impacted by a lack of structure, that is endemic in the industry, basically constantly. And so they build structure, they build a vibe, they build a culture, and they know how to interview people who are going to fit into that. And the people who fit into that, who might not know absolutely everything about the
Hmm.
technologies at hand, they're willing to mentor them, and that says a lot to me.
Yeah. It's about that
So
mentoring.
when they onboard them, training, right? What happens with training? I mean, honestly,
Hopefully you have a training plan.
yeah. And maybe
We
some
find
training
many
materials
which
that's
do.
not just like, here's 1700 hours of ConnectWise University. Can you watch this so you can learn how to change a status and enter your time? And no,
No.
yeah,
Yeah. So it should be structured, should be focused on the role, right? Um, I mean, level one, level two, or infrastructure, they all get their different roles. So the training should be a lot different. Dispatcher, different role. So should be focused on the role. I mean, it doesn't have to be completely different, but there are different differentials.
there should be some basics, and there should be there should be a chance for the person to ask questions, because then you
Yeah.
can get to know them and their, what they need to connect the dots. And so my favorite way of doing it was, basically one client onboarded the first person from us, and they had a live trainer. We
Hmm.
recorded with our remote tech in Vietnam. This was a company in California with somebody live. Actually, the guy training was in Florida, and the tech was in Vietnam, and they managed to find hours where they could sync up in the day.
Yeah.
And basically, they did the training. We recorded that on Zoom. Then, a couple months later, when they wanted to hire the second person, the task was watch this initial training between the trainer and
These
the
two
first
guys.
tech, and make a list of questions that come up as you're watching it, that things that you are wondering about by watching this.
Hmm.
So then what happened is basically we were able to replicate that.
Yeah.
And by the
And then
time the
they come
third,
with a list of questions, and then for the third person, you have the video and a list of answers or some
yeah,
structured
yeah. And
document.
so trying to make something that's repeatable,
Yeah.
and it should be written down what the objectives of the training are. And also, I really think that training people via test tasks is really
Yeah.
important. Like what we do with the 24/7 service, the
Yeah.
shared help desk service, where it's like, hey, we got this new client. Can you try logging into this server and take a
Yeah.
screenshot, send it back to me? You know,
And if
as
they can't, it's either a problem with the documentation, right?
yeah, it's us or it's
Or
them. Yeah,
yeah, or they're not understanding a certain process or how things interact. Um, so yeah, test tasks are great. I love doing test tasks for people when we onboard a new client or something. Log on to this firewall, log on to the Hyper-V, log on to this ESXi host, examples. Um, going back one step, um, there, touching on the training again. Um, you said about having objectives, right? And that's so important. We have one client who they have 30, 60, and 90-day objectives in training. And they obviously, some get missed, but that's the idea is, okay, after 30 days, we should be here. After 60 days, up there. After 90 days, up there. It's fantastic. Makes so much sense. And we see it so not enough.
yeah, exactly. So that's the structure that, and if you have that structure in their beginning, and then they're getting put into a well-defined ecosystem of structure, which is also constantly being worked on and optimized, then you've probably got a good MSP. Your clients will be happy, and you just need to have some controls on stuff like ticket notes,
Yeah.
accountability on the metrics, and sort of a way of keeping people happy and listening to them.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
didn't touch on metrics actually, but
Okay. So yeah. All right. This is your realm. So go ahead. What
it just
I'm a
show.
tech. Let me play devil's advocate here, and I'm a tech, and like, what does it matter? Okay, I'll solve. Give me a ticket, I'll solve it. Why do you need to look at these metrics? Why do you need to judge me based on this, that, and the other thing?
Okay, so metrics is it's a way of understanding how things are running, what processes and how the processes are running, right? Because okay, say you have an SLA, which most MSPs do. You have an SLA of 30 minutes first response. So you have a metric on that. That's a key performance indicator for those tags. And it will tell you if the dispatcher is looking at the board quickly enough, right? Because if the dispatcher is not looking at the board quickly enough, then the first response will go down. And it will also tell you the communication between the dispatcher and the technicians, how quick and how well that's working. Um, Especially with more urgent things, right? Because if the dispatcher is just assigning a ticket, which is his job, but not communicating that this is a priority one, you need to work on this right way, then that ball's going to get dropped. The SLA is going to be 1 hour when it should have been within half an hour. And your key performance and your metrics tell you that. And that's why they're important. You have many others, like the phone calls, many others, and people don't use them or not don't use
ConnectWise and
them enough.
Autotask
And
are full of these sorts of things that can report on all this stuff, and
yeah,
workflow
but
rules when balls
everybody's
are
too
dropped, and
busy.
everybody's too busy not looking at the big picture, just because the attitude of us techs is basically give me a
Fix the
problem, I'll
problem.
solve it. And that's our mo for existing, is give me a
Yep.
problem and I'll solve it. And as soon as it's done, no time
Next one.
no time to put things back in order. I'm going to leave a mess here and go on to the next fire because I'm a firefighter and people need help. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you need people in your organization who are not like that, who don't have a weakness that overlaps with those people. You need someone to look at statistics. You need someone to ensure documentation is good. And then well, why should a building be on fire? There's a way to structure things so that things are more fire safe. in the fire industry, like and
Yeah.
in the aviation industry as well. Planes would crash if they were run like most MSPs. As I said earlier, planes would crash, buildings would burn down. But luckily, since it's just technology
It's just fixing people's problems. We're
and
not
there's no
doctors.
standardization in this industry,
Yeah.
and people like calling up and having some dude like help them, and they enjoy that. It's a nice break from your day if you're in an accounting department, just like crunching out numbers, talking
Yeah,
to
I'm not sure
John.
when it's the fifth time today you can't print.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so exciting, but that's the putting out fires bit, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we found I've got so much experience with MSPs, and they're concentrating on fixing, putting out those fires, and
Well, marketing themselves as proactive
yeah,
maintenance
but
companies
they're
that
just
are,
reactive. They don't look at the bigger picture. They don't classify the difference between incidents and problems and figuring out root causes,
yeah.
And then that's because they're just putting out fires day in, day out.
All right. Now, to sum this interview up, I really want to talk about your latest big project that we've given you,
Okay.
the one that we referred to as a bit of a dumpster fire.
Dumpster fire.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, so we started talking to this company. They immediately were very interested in what we do. We booked
Yeah.
the second call, which was consultation. We looked at what they're doing. It was a little bit of a mess, and
Yeah.
then a couple staff were leaving, but we didn't realize the magnitude of um, how much things were in disarray until we started the onboarding. At
Yeah.
which point we essentially took over
Yeah.
in
We
this
have taken over
as
there.
the captain now. So
Yeah.
basically, so you've got an MSP that previously had about 5 people, and now
Well, they
they've
had three full-time, like, first/second line guys.
from us now
No, before.
before, but those people all left.
But yeah, those people all left
All
within
the
two
the whole
weeks.
front line, first and
Yeah.
second, left, and we replaced them with our guys now,
Yeah.
and basically and added a
And a
dispatcher.
dispatcher.
So what's the difference you've seen in the first 3 weeks? I think it's been.
Um, well, the ticket
Where did we
numbers have gone.
start? Yeah.
We started off about
Right.
300
When we got in there, as
open
soon as we saw
tickets.
ConnectWise, it was just like, wait a second, why do you have a bunch of tickets in new status with 17 days old?
Yeah,
As the
exactly. And
yeah,
the response was these are closed tickets, right?
or
So
the work has been done on these tickets, I
the
believe, with the
work's been
exact. We
done.
just need to bill it. It's like, wait a second. So where are the notes? There are no notes. It's like
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, so why weren't the guys leaving notes? They're like, well, they're no longer with the company. Does that say enough, basically?
yeah.
And
Um,
yeah,
so I mean, yeah, we've come in. Ticket numbers down to about 42, 43 tickets at the moment.
from down from 200 or
For 300, yeah.
300. Oh.
So that's massive. We've got the dispatcher making sure tickets are getting updated every day. I'm drilling him hard to do that. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, we put the processes in place. I've realized that one of the techs is a bit less skilled than the other two. So obviously, I put in a process where he can work on tickets for maximum of 30 minutes.
Yep.
And then he escalates to the dispatcher pushes it on to one of the other guys. And we're doing reverse escalations as well. So when the senior techs resolve those problems, it's coming back to him so he can learn.
So
So I'm
essentially, you've got a company in the United States who was probably paying 4, 5, 6, I don't know how many thousands of dollars a month for each of the guys who are sitting there not updating the ticket notes.
Yeah,
And I hope we can make it so that he looks back in a couple months saying those guys leaving was the best thing that ever happened, and
he
hiring you
will
guys.
100%. That's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
because now from having a bunch of techs pointing fingers at each other to basically having a centralized dispatcher taking responsibility for assigning things and moving things around, and then 3 people who are being coached on how to leave ticket notes, how to escalate to dispatch, and how to
Yeah,
learn
and
why things got solved in the end. Yeah.
like I'm only working on this for 3 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
But the
Plus you're
processes,
essentially an acting service desk manager
yeah,
at the moment.
exactly. But the
Yeah,
processes that I've put in place for the dispatcher means that I don't have to be there full time, right?
exactly.
I mean, if I was there full time, then I'll be looking at other metrics and from that top down thing. But I don't need to be there because the processes are in place. He knows and every day I speak with him, the dispatcher, and I say, okay, how are things going? Maybe we should try this and get his input because he's there. all day.
Talking to the
So I
clients, yeah.
yeah, and I get his input, asking him how's this working with this tech. What do you think? You should we change this a bit? Always looking to improve. It's very
Yeah,
important as well.
exactly. Always having a system and improving it.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, these are the SOPs, this is how it is, sorry.
Mm-mm.
No, but like, hey, this client complained that the service could be better. And I can see that the techs were following our SOP, but maybe they didn't escalate in time. Maybe they could
Yeah.
have gotten rather than escalating and the ticket sitting on the shelf for 2 hours, they could have escalated live before transfer escalation, where it was assigned to another tech and gotten that
Yeah.
answer, quicker and stuff like that. Then you had the live plus transfer escalation pattern rather than that. You need to always look at these things. And I guess, the advantage of having outside consultants like us who are used to actually being in the thick of it is you get a bag of tips and tricks that are essentially at your disposal.
Yeah.
But
They essentially
yeah,
like they industry best practice, right? That's you look at a system and how it's working, and you think, okay, I've seen this before. I've seen what works. Us personally, we've seen what
yeah.
works, we've seen what doesn't work, and we can give this honest advice and say, this is how you should be running your service desk.
And what definitely does not work, let's leave the biggest takeaway for all of this is having random text picking up random tickets and leaving random bits of documentation and
Yeah,
escalating in a random chat room definitely is not the way
is no
forward.
other
If
way.
you want to build a business that makes your dreams come true, that otherwise it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be chaos as after you reach a certain breaking point of volume. It just people are going to be stressed out, and then you could have a situation where all your techs leave at once. They
In
might
the
just
same week, yeah,
yeah, and listen to your techs is the other takeaway I want to
hmm
leave for this. Listen to your techs. When we do consulting, we listen to all the stakeholders and
yeah,
ask them what they think of the current way of doing things, whether it's written down or not, and try to incorporate that into a system that will make as much as possible, as many people as possible, as happy as possible, right?
yeah,
You can't make everybody happy all the time, but you can make a system and some boundaries to set around the whole service desk and how it's run that will make most of the people happy most of the time.
yeah. I mean,
So
yeah, and you might lose a tech, right? You might lose a member
you
of
definitely will
management.
lose a tech, but if you've got a system for training and recruiting and training a new tech, and then a system for them to do their job, and you're investing in people by mentoring them, if you're
Hmm.
investing in the right tools, the right sort of people to run the dispatch and management side of your business, then chances are you're going to be better than 90% of the MSPs that we see out there.
Yeah,
And well, I guess that's the end of the
and
chat.
that's where you want to be.
That's
Yeah.
where you want to be. I mean, so if you like what we said, we are available. I'll leave a link in the description on how you can contact us for a consultation. We give a lot for free on YouTube as well, which you are going to want to check out on Support
Yep.
Adventure YouTube channel. Basically, I mean, I started this business, well, when I was 16. I really loved computers, and I was fiddling around with Linux. And once I started getting into business and Windows, I stopped doing Linux. And ever since then, computers has been my job, and it's been a way of doing it. And I started this business Support Adventure because I wanted to live abroad and travel the world while I was doing my job. And all of these insights came from me going where I wanted to in life. So if what you want as an MSP owner is to have a business that you can work from your laptop on a beach somewhere, knowing that you're going to have to take 3 management meetings a week and that everything else is going to be handled by competent management staff that know what their realm is and how to provide leadership to people in that realm, then your job can get a lot easier. And we're here to help you do that and help you find the best staff who are the best fit for the best structure that you can build for your business. So,
Hmm.
yeah, thanks a lot, Nick.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, MSP Mountain, reach new heights.